presentation with Zacciah Blackburn and Dorothy. I'm sorry.
Dorothy Stone.
Yeah, Dorothy Stone. Yeah. So, um, welcome again to the Sound Healing Conference. This is our 9th Sound Healing Conference. Zacciah was at one of our first ones. In fact, maybe the first one. And
Yes.
God, it's been over 10 years now. Um, I'd like to introduce Zacciah. He's a gifted intuitive educator, sound healer, and sacred sound channel, trained in classical healing and shamanic traditions and sacred sound cultures. He teaches, oh, let's see, yes, I'm going to double check I'm recording. He teaches internationally and practices in Vermont at the Center of Light Institute of Sound Healing and Shamanic Studies. Zacciah shares authentic trainings in the nature of human consciousness, authentic being explorations into the shamanic worlds of earth energies and awareness, and teaching on the nature of sound, healing, and consciousness, and their interrelationship as a tool for therapeutic healing. His in-depth understanding provides life-transforming experiences into the authentic nature of being and wellness of who we are as spiritual beings and our purpose here. He served as Director of Education at the International Sound Healing Network and co-founder and director of the World Sound Healing and All One Now Network. He also serves the sound healing shamanic communities by bringing his skills and expertise into consultations to help practitioners choose and build their learning skills for a wide variety of traditional and contemporary musical instruments used in sound healing and shamanic practices at Sunreed Instruments, an online and retail sound healing and musical instrument store in business since 1977, viewed at www.sunreed.com. His educational and therapeutic practices are offered at his primary website, centeroflight.net. Okay. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Dave, and thank you for inviting us. I'm always grateful to be here and be part of your many offerings. Thank you.
Thank you. So what have you been up to lately? What are you doing these days?
Well, we've been doing a great deal, and we've actually just moved into and opened a new center here in Chester, Vermont. We've been here a year and just settling in, creating a new practice space as well as retail business and warehouse shipping space for all of the different things that we do. Dorothy is joining with me in our practices now, and we're offering a sound practice here to begin our session with.
I want to ask you one question, though, before you begin. And this is,
Sure.
I'm coming across a lot of philanthropists that are ready to help the planet now. So if you had all the money in the world, what would you do to help the planet with sound?
Well, David, all the money in the world, that's a vast sum beyond my scope of understanding, probably. Even.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
We have really very few physical needs here for ourselves on the planet, and we would be looking at and devoting the vast majority of that to how we can help with the suffering on the planet, with all of the people around the world who are less fortunate than so many of us in the West are, though I understand many are suffering in the West as well. But how can we resolve the vast problems that are encompassing our societies now, such as global warming and environmental problems, social evolution problems, as well as trying to generate more wellness at a deeper level of spiritual understanding for people, of finding ways to bring balance and a more harmonious pace to life and to our understanding of ourselves and our relationship to the greater cosmos. Do you have anything to add to that?
I would be assembling the most brilliant minds available to meet challenges of world hunger, poverty, educational needs, and community, broader community support for all people everywhere, as well as support for the natural environment to
Nice. Great.
save the
Thank
planet.
Great. Okay. So,
We're at a special
Go.
time in the world now, and such an offering could generate so much good for the planet. But perhaps we could begin with just a simple offering here for those who are listening and joining with us. We have limited time with Dorothy today, and I'd love to have her join in a simple sound practice to help people understand both the way that we come forward in sound work, but also to give a direct experience to people that may be a benefit to them. And this particular experience is based on wisdom arising from a number of cultures, but specifically the Tibetan culture. And it's fundamentally simply focusing on a felt sense of coherent space within the heart center, deep in the center of the chest, just entering a feeling state of spaciousness in the heart. And we can generate that through our own experience now, especially for mindful practitioners, or we can use our memory or our imagination to imagine a time or place that we might be in a place of vast spaciousness. I like to imagine being on a mountaintop, but a farmer's field at night, allowing our heart to open into the vastness of a starry sky, resting by the ocean, sitting on next to a river or out in a fertile plain or a great desert. Just, if I might ask each of our listeners to come to a place where they might feel or imagine a state of spaciousness in the heart and breathe into that state. And that's the fundamental practice. From that, we tend to release all tension and anxiety that we may be experiencing because spaciousness is an open state of awareness. So on the out-breath, we breathe out any other feelings such as tension or anxiety. On the in-breath, we simply breathe into the heart center to experience an inherent quality of spaciousness there. On the out-breath, letting go of all else. And we're going to use 2 different crystal bowls that are tuned to a perfect fifth to help us with this practice. We'll begin a prayerful way of meeting into the practice with toning. Toning for us is a prayerful experience. Toning is just simple use of voice. And again, for those listening, just come into a restful place, imagining or sensing a felt sense of spaciousness within the heart. Just resting in that, letting all else go. The wisdoms of the teachings include that just entering spaciousness creates a nest of nourishment and building of luminosity within the heart center. If you might like to deepen or expand the practice from the heart center, feel into the space just before and above you, and just imagine or sense a luminous ball of wisdom there, just a luminous ball, a soft luminosity. Those of you more skilled or experienced might imagine one of your guides or teachers resting within that state of luminosity before you. Slowly just breathe into that luminous sphere. Note how you feel when you touch into that space. And breathe those feeling spaces back into the heart. Through this process, you entrain to that gentle luminosity in that soft space before you. For those doing so, you're entraining to the heart of wisdom of your guides or teachers and drawing that wisdom through your resonant states into your heart center. Feeling into that state with each breath, coming more and more into resonance with all you feel in that soft, luminous glow just before you. For those of you going deeper into the practice and training so much that you breathe the very essence of your guide or teacher into the heart, becoming that aspect of luminous wisdom yourself. Take your time, just breathing into that luminous state, feeling that gentle quality of luminosity there. In a sacred way, we make this offering. Gently draw your wisdom more fully into the heart space, just noticing how you feel now, perhaps noticing that gentle luminosity within the heart, and simply coming to rest there for as long as you wish. Thank you so much. Namaste.
May you hold that center place of harmony, of balance, of peace and grace, and carry that into the world with you, everywhere.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you, and thank you to Dorothy for joining us. She unfortunately needs to leave, but I hope that this was beneficial for our listeners. Thank you. So are you going to guide me in questions or
No.
free flow
No.
here?
Yeah, no, go ahead and just do a presentation, and then if I have any questions, I'll jump in.
Okay.
We're recording now. Go ahead. Okay, tell us what your presentation's about.
Well, David, I'm speaking today about sound healing and consciousness. And I know that you and I have spoken about this before in my time there. But I found some time ago that there's this distinct relationship between these three aspects of life and healing that are very beneficial and important to examine. So again, sound, healing, and consciousness. So I have many people come to our practices and training, for instance, who either are sound healers or want to become sound healers. And I often begin the conversation by simply saying something like, well, okay, so what is healing? What does that really mean? What does it mean to each of us here gathered? And I find that many people have very many different feelings or opinions or philosophies regarding the very nature of healing. So if I was a medical doctor from the allopathic fields of medicine, I might just simply say that healing is a lack of symptomology. Like if there's no problems, you're not presenting any symptoms, well, you're good to go, you're all healed. A psychotherapist might have a more mindful aspect of that, drawing into our emotional states and so forth, our mental states, and just how we are feeling about life and presentations and past history and many different things. But they have their own sense of what healing might be. If I go to a holistic practitioner, they certainly may have a different sense, wrapping in a more whole sense of wellness into their concept of healing. But I find many people in many methodologies don't really go into a distinct definition of what healing is. And I found very early in my life that a very good resource for definitions of things is the dictionary. And I refer to Daniel Webster's version often, though I use other resources for the nature of meanings of words. And I find that the original meanings of words often bring a deeper understanding to me, a deeper wisdom of what I'm speaking about. And I find that when I understand what I'm speaking about, that it empowers me in a way, that I have a richer knowing about that. And indeed, the word knowing is a very good aspect of that understanding of word meaning. Knowing in the original meaning means to be able. And what's funny about that is that power means to be able. So here's two words where we often talk about knowledge as power. And in our modern culture, we tend to associate knowledge with gaining authority from authorities outside of ourselves. You know, the doctors and lecturers at the university, the academics and so forth that know so much, they're the authorities in their field, and we gain knowledge through understanding, through study with those who have gone before us. And that's a very excellent way to gain knowledge. But the first common definition of to know in Webster is that which is directly perceived. So here I alter that nature of knowledge from a place gained from outside of myself to having to trust my own experience and perception, and that's where my knowing lay. And this also is my power, where my power lays. This is my knowing, this is my power. They derive from the very same source. And this is very beneficial to understand. Healing is similar to this. If I go into Webster and look at the original meaning of healing, it arises from that word wholeness. And many of our listeners may well be aware of this, as the entire holistic field arises from this understanding of wholeness as the very fundamental nature of healing. But for some reason, I wasn't totally satisfied in that, and I went deeper and found that there is an origin to wholeness also, and that origin is holiness. And in my own life experience, this brings me into a greater understanding of the nature of healing. It is a state of wholeness that is derived from our holiness or our relationship to all of the cosmos, to all of creation. What is that? It may be different for you and for me, but in general, there is this nature of ourself and its relationship to the cosmos, which is fundamental to the nature of healing. And as it comes about, most wisdom traditions of the world focus upon this. They focus upon the nature of the self in relationship to the greater cosmos of the greater whole. In Tibetan wisdom, the Dharma is one of the fundamental gateways or jewels of the wisdom teachings of Tibetan Buddhism. And many of us have interpreted Dharma to mean the teachings of the Buddha. But when I go beyond even that, beyond the Buddha, the word Dharma was there for quite some time, and one of the definitions of it is just that, the nature of the self, and it's the greater self with the capital S. So the true essence of self, the nature of the self in relationship to the cosmos, that serves me greatly to understand the nature of healing. When I can discover who I am and what my relationship to this greater cosmos is, there I stand in my power, in my knowing, in my healing, in my wholeness, in relationship to the entire cosmos, this entire vast mystical universe. And I am so grateful for that when I discover that. And one of the things about this is that then I have a pathway. I have a pathway to healing, and then I know how to map this for others to help and assist and escort others into that pathway of healing within themselves. It's about self-discovery. It's about self-realization and self-revelation. And I need authentic practices in order to abide within that pathway of self-discovery. And it may be different for every one of us. For the 7 billion of us, I can tell you it's not just one path, and yet it is one path to the nature of self-discovery. Who am I? Who are you? Who am I? And what is my purpose here? What is my relationship to the greater cosmos? In the Peruvian mysteries, they say that we are now in the time of Torope Pacha, which has slightly different interpretations, but my teachers taught me that this is the time of meeting ourselves again. It's a time prophesied hundreds of years ago, if not eons ago. The time of meeting ourselves again, the Torope Pacha. It falls much in the same time space of the Mayan prophecies and the whole calendrical setting and resetting around 2012 when we entered a new era. That's actually the midway point of the designated era of the Torope Pacha. It's midway, and the Kero of the wisdom teachings of Central Peru would say that in this period of time, this will occur, this time of meeting ourselves again. Well, what part of ourselves have we not yet met? What part of ourselves do we yet need to know? This is the part of discovery that is the pathway to healing, of discovering our true essence, our true nature, our divine self, if I may. And when we understand this, when we connect into this true essential nature of self, we feel the connection with the whole. We feel the connection with the all. We are at one with it, and we realize we are part of it, if not more than that. We are part of the whole of nature and the whole of creation. I used to tell my students, what difference does it make if my mother didn't love me in this life? I mean, I can go around and around trying to discover and resolve any lack of any lack of love or any trauma or abuse or anything that I may have suffered in this life. But when the great mother of all life is holding me, what difference does it make? When I'm in the arms of the great mother who brings and breathes life to all things, what difference does it make to what may have happened to me in this lifetime? It becomes so small and irrelevant when I feel into that wholeness and that breath of life that breathes through me, just as it breathes through every cherished being on this planet and throughout this great and vast cosmos. So here I am in the pathway of discovering the essence of the true self in relationship to the greater cosmos. And when I have made that journey, I, as a practitioner, can then assist others through that journey. I can assist others in that pathway of self-discovering. I know the midway points, and I know many of the danger points, and I can help guide and hold and protect them as they move through that. I can hold safe and sacred space as we journey together through their own therapeutic healing of what's occurred in this life to the point that they can discover this deeper reality of their true essence of self. The practice we just offered you of spaciousness is a very simple practice, and yet full of profound wisdom that literally from the teaching of the wisdom places opens the gateway into the deeper mysteries. There in deep space, which is the fundamental essence of the mother of life that breathes through all things, space which even modern physics tells us is the only thing that connects everything in the universe, is space at a molecular level, at a universal level. Space is the only thing that connects us all. And we want to breathe into spaciousness in the heart, which is an ancient wisdom practice from the East, from some of my traditional indigenous cultures as well. Breathing into spaciousness connects me with the heart of all life. And as I said before the practice, it also releases us from tension and the binding of heartaches and other things in our life. I cannot hold tension and open spaciousness at the same time. They can't coexist. So I can choose. Which do I prefer? The tension and that which needs to be healed, or the openness and that is which is revealed? And here in this open space, which is understood as the fundamental nature of the vast mother encompassing all things, she can rise up and reveal herself to me. I would not be surprised if everyone listening to this webcast there were not some that could write to you and say, oh my God, you wouldn't believe the deep experience I just had. Just in 10 minutes of experiencing spaciousness, open awareness. And when I go into that openness, I enter a state known as clear view. I can see clearly. The clouds are gone. The fog is gone. I'm not focusing on my little problems in life. I'm just resting in the openness like the vast ocean or sky. And here I can see forever. And so then, if I choose to bring a life situation into my fold, into my view, I can see it more distinctly. I'm not entangled in the emotional mess of it. I'm in open clarity or spaciousness, and I can see my life situation, and there I can make clear choices that allow me to move in a more sacred direction, in a more whole direction, in a more clear direction. So clear view engages clear choice. Clear choice engages clear action. And this creates a cycle which is self-feeding and self-fulfilling. Clear view, clear choice, clear action. It opens me to a vast state of awareness that happens to be interconnected to all life. So here I am in a state of healing, understanding, discovering my true essential nature because I've simply come into clarity. And the nature of the teachings that just spaciousness alone is self-revealing, it's self-luminous, it's self-nourishing, just resting in space. So this alone is enough to carry us far upon the path. And as a practitioner, I study these traditional wisdom teachings as to the nature of self in the greater cosmos. And I draw from these wisdom teachings connections of that deeper reality that I might bring forward and share the mysteries and wonders through traditional practices and self-experiences within the mystery. Because I like to say that authentic practices are self-evolutionary also. They open us, authentic practices open us to the deeper teachings, to the mystery itself. And there she can and will, in the right circumstance, reveal herself to us. And it becomes so heartwarming, heartfelt. We embrace it and we want to go deeper and deeper into that mystery as it reveals more and more of ourself and our relationship to this cosmos. So here we become, just through a simple practice, engaged in the vastness of the universe and our relationship to it. So consciousness is a great part of this. Consciousness is wrapped right into our knowing. And I find that as a practitioner, whether I'm seeking to enhance self-wellness or be an escort for others to help assist them in their journey to wellness and wholeness, where I focus my attention, my intention, and my inner states of awareness are primary to the practice. If I'm in a place of lost confusion or engaged in the emotions, let's say I'm coming to my practice room and I just had a major warped meeting of something, I don't know, some emotional entanglement with my partner, or driving to work and somebody cut me off on the road, or my dog pooped on the floor, or my baby's crying and I can't comfort her, but I have to get to practice, and I go storming into the practice room and I'm all caught up in my own emotions. I am not serving my client. That actually, if I cannot get out of it right now, I need to say to my client, I'm sorry that I really don't like to do this, but I have to cancel our practice today. Or take a walk for 15 minutes and I'll be ready for you. I have to do something for the benefit of that client because they're coming. They're paying me. They're looking for wisdom and clarity to help them in their own work. I can't be bringing my stuff into the practice room. So I have to discover and build upon states of inner clarity and coherence that are based in the fundamental essential nature of self in relationship to the cosmos. This is my responsibility as a practitioner. I must engage in inner states of wellness and awareness myself. And then, through the very nature of entrainment, just my presence in the room changes the outcome of reality. Now that's pure physics in itself, but it also arises from the wisdom teachings. We know that our innate nature will affect others. And by entering into innate states of wellness and wholeness within ourselves, that literally is vibrating into the room. It's resonating in the room. And everyone there feels it. People come into the room and they're going to know it. There are many right now sitting here listening who are feeling very differently than they did when they began this practice with us today. And they're experiencing something that they may or may not understand as a state of clarity, a state of exuberance, a state of vast wealth of being. And it comes from just entering those inner states of wholeness in the self. We're exuding them. We're emanating them. We're resonating them into the room. And through the very nature of entrainment, others will come into that space. They're coming to our practice room because they want to engage in a more coherent state. So like, you may have seen these. These are two tuning forks. I hope you can hear them. They both sound the same. They're both the same pitch and resonance. Can you hear those? You may be on mute.
Yeah, we can hear them quite well.
So these are tuned to 880A, and it's a very high frequency, but they look very different. You would think they might sound very different, but they're both tuned to exactly the same frequency. And this is just to demonstrate the nature of entrainment. Even though this specifically is sympathetic resonance, we are in training to the world around us all the time. It's one of the principles and sciences of sound, and when we understand it, it can help us in our own practice for self and for others. So in this, I'm going to hold this tuning fork perfectly still, and I'm going to strike the other one. It's going to begin resonating. And when I bring it into the field of the larger one, it begins resonating. I hope you can hear that. So they're both silent. I'm going to hold this one up, strike the small one, bring it into the field of the other one, and it begins resonating through the vibrations of the smaller tuning fork. This is what we all are doing all the time. We're resonating our felt senses into the room. We're all picking it up. We all know this. We may not, some of us are not as aware as others. But I could be sitting there typing at the typewriter and my partner comes in behind me and I feel her sense of happiness or sadness or turmoil if something just happened. I feel it before I even hear her or know that she's there. This is how we all are. We feel the emotional states of everyone. And if we can develop felt senses of coherence within us, we are going to affect everyone in the room. I remember one of my great teachers at a conference one time with 100 people, most of whom had no idea who she was. And she spoke for an hour, and in that time, she took a tiny 10 or 12-inch drum and banged it for about 10 minutes each and asked us to focus on a simple awareness practice, going into incredible states. This teacher is one of the most profound human beings I know. She probably exudes a state of holiness more than anyone I've been in the presence of. I'm honored every time I have the opportunity just to be near her. Most of these 100 people didn't even know who she was, and we were honoring her that evening. And, she finished the practice, and she bowed and said, "Thank you," perhaps, something like that, and nobody said anything. Everybody was perfectly still. And it was the longest time, and I realized, well, okay, I need to do something because I was hosting this event. I came up and I thanked her, Blessed Mother, thank you for your teachings and your wisdom. Thank you for everything you've shared. And we both turned to the audience, and the whole audience was just sitting there dumbfaced because she had brought them to this place of incredible self-realization or wellness or wholeness or something that they just didn't know what to do with. And they were all just sitting there in a place of kind of stunned tranquility or brilliance. It was a beautiful feeling in the room, and yet it was a time that we should be honoring our teacher, with applause or bowing or something, and everybody was just fixated in fixed trance state. So she said, well, thank you again. And she turned to leave the room. I went to open the door for her. And at that moment, as she's leaving the room, everyone was like, oh, we have to do something. They all stood up and started applauding immensely. But that's what entrainment does. It brings you into that clear state itself. So we as practitioners have a fundamental responsibility to understand this and to look at our own inner states and our own innate states and learn how to bring forward those innate states that we can help others on this pathway of healing. Now, what's profound about this, for those of us who are or want to be sound or shamanic healers, is that sound is an incredible tool and ally. Sound actually is one of the fundamental forces of creation. And every indigenous and wisdom culture of the planet knows this and uses sound as a fundamental tool of resonance in their life and practice to open ourselves to the divine states, the clear space of something that is considered not beneficial, to invoke that which we consider holy or coherent or divine, to enhance those states in others. For invocation and so forth, we have since the beginning of time utilized sound as a force of creation. So many of us have done this in ways we might not imagine. But there's a universal understanding in the wisdom schools. And briefly, for those who may not understand what I mean when I say wisdom school, I'm speaking about traditional spiritual schools of wisdom, such as Tibetan Buddhism or Hinduism, mystical Christianity, schools, the indigenous cultures. All over the planet, there are schools that hold ancient traditional practices and continue to evolve them and teach those practices for the benefit of others. So that's what I'm referring to as wisdom schools. And the wisdom schools around the planet understand the nature and mystery of sound and utilize it specifically. For instance, many of us know from Hinduism the union of Shiva and Shakti, the god and goddess of the universe. Shiva is considered the god of universal consciousness, and in much of Hinduism is understood as the creator being. And Shakti is his cohort of equal partnership, the female aspect of life force. And it's the union of consciousness and life force in perfect union that manifests the world, all of creation, into manifest form. And those that understand Hinduism a little know the Sri Yantra, which is the symbol of their union that opens up in the perfect star tetrahedron within a circle of grace, well, there's many aspects to the Sri Yantra that can take us into the very mysteries of space, but it is a manifest symbol with great meaning of the very nature of reality as it manifests in creation. It's that perfect union of life force and consciousness. So some of the schools in the Vedic or Hindu understanding would say that in the human form, consciousness is our thought, it's our intention, our prayers, and so forth. And life force is our feeling states, our emotions. And that when we bring them into union and give them a voice, we literally are engaging in the act of creation. We are manifesting. And this is why many cultures advise us and admonish us to be mindful of what we say, because they understand that every word is a seed of creation. We are planting seeds of karma with everything we say. So are they good seeds with good and clear intentions and emotions? Or are they not so good and not for the benefit of the others as we start whispering about, oh my God, look at that person, blah, 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 blah. And all of that crazy stuff. We are planting seeds that come back karmically and enhance our life or diminish our life depending upon how we sowed them. So what is the clarity of intention and awareness that we bring? What is the clarity of the emotional states we bring? And again, we've all done this since we were children. We know this mystery inside out. We just aren't that aware that we know it. How many of you, I want you to raise your hands, though I cannot see you. How many of you, as children, played the magical game, abracadabra? And there you were with the hat, the wizard hat, you're going to bring a rabbit out of it, or whatever your magic trick was going to do. You gathered with your friends, and one or all of you gathered around it, you set your intention, and you clearly stated, abracadabra, okay? And what were we doing? Well, the mystical schools all know exactly what we're doing. And abracadabra actually is two ancient Aramaic words which literally mean, because I say it, it is so. Now, wisdom is there so deep for those who wish to hear it. Because I say it, it is so. You know, one of the great master teachers said to us, you see that mountain over there? If you say unto that mountain, move ye unto the sea, that mountain shall move unto the sea, if you have no doubt in your heart. Now, how many of us believe that? When we can get to that point, we too shall be turning water into wine. And even the Buddha says that the biggest obstacle to our self-realization is doubt. Doubt of who we truly are. Doubt of our relationship to the greater life. Doubt of our connection to all life. Doubt is the greatest obstacle or obscuration to our self-realization. Even the Buddha tells us, but when we know it, and there's that word again, when I know it to be so, it is so. Because I say it, it is so. Now, the elders of many traditions teach us this in sound practices. And some of our listeners may have seen me demonstrate this before, but this is a simple demonstration of using a simple sound tool in this way, of this cohesive state of awareness and intention with a clear emotional field. Now, in this case, I'm also going to call upon some of my alliances in the unseen worlds, and I'm going to voice that connection to an invocation connection and perhaps even a mild channeling of that connection to the sacred energies of the unseen worlds. And I'm going to use it utilizing this simple tool of a rattle. So this was made by one of my dear friends who actually studied with Cherokee elders who taught her this very mystery, even though I have learned it from many of the teachers. And in this particular case, the rattle literally symbolizes the nature of creation. This is a Sri Yantra in its own form. This is the perfect union of the female and male mysteries of life. So here's the feminine, the womb, the egg, the rattle, okay? And here's the phallus, the male. And they're in perfect union. And here I am, I'm going to hold them, okay? And as I shake the rattle, I'm going to bring, can you hear it okay here?
Yes,
Okay.
that's good.
Thank you so much. So with the rattle, every time that the seeds, the pebbles, hit the inside of the womb, it's understood that I am seeding my thoughts and prayers in the manifest creation. This is one of the mysteries handed down by the elders who hold this quality of mystery of the nature of sacred sound. I'm holding it in my hand, the ability to seed and create. So practitioners around the world, here, I hand you the rattle and I ask you, what will you do with this now? Now that you have this seed that I'm giving you, what will you do with it? What will you create? Can you, as the practitioner, not see the responsibility that you hold to enter clear states of feeling, emotion, and consciousness, prayer, and intent? Do you not have a clear responsibility as you use these simple implements of sound to hold the highest states of clarity and awareness within yourself, the highest states of intention? So I'm going to do a little prayer song that came to me out in a friend's forest that had been clear-cut by a prior owner of the property. My friends had asked me to go in and speak to the spirits of the place because they had bought this property. They had found this extraordinary part of it destroyed by prior owners, just clear-cut with a huge mess left. And they tried to clean it up. They tried to create prayers to the spirits of the place. They knew that this was an ancestral meeting ground, so it was a sacred site to the indigenous people. They did all of the right things to create right relationship and make their intentions known that they wanted to be good caretakers and clear this forest. But the spirits were angry at them, and they would come back and say, yes, we know, blah, blah, blah. And they had misfortune. They had difficulties and challenges. And I came to them one time visiting. This was in Nova Scotia. I was teaching for a few days. They were my hosts. They asked me if I would take time to go out and acquaint to the land and perhaps see if I could speak with the beings there and find out what they could do differently or better to come into right relationship where they were not angering the spirits but enhancing good relationship. And I offered gladly to do this, and I took my time. I took several days just being in the outskirts of the property. I never went into the land where this had occurred. I just rested and would just quietly feel into the space and quietly let my presence be known. And I have particular ways that I use to enter sacred places and to acknowledge what is there and the ancestral wisdom and reverential states there, and asking permission to come in and to do prayer or other work. There's very specific methods I use to do this. And we do teach those in earth rituals and ceremonies also, where we go to ancient sites, whether it's in Machu Picchu or Giza or Stonehenge, or right here in Vermont, to ancient sites and just natural places of beauty and wonder. When you learn to enter in a reverential state and ask the right course of permission to work there, it enhances relationship and practice in ways that are profound. So there I finally went down into this core of the property and discovered this devastated forest. And it, you know, in Vermont, we are green keepers. We actually have laws to protect forest, and foresters do good work and have particular ways that they have to manage the forest in good ways. And this was about as devastated of a place as I'd been in. I was hurt walking through this beautiful forest. It was just cut and wounded so terribly. And I went out into the middle of this open clearing and just sat there for several minutes, just in training to the energy of the place. And eventually began a prayer, calling upon the spirits of the place, asking permission to be there, but to speak with them, and letting them know, here are these beautiful beings who are trying to create right relationship. They're not finding the way to do it with you. What's the problem? What is it that we need to do differently? And they came out and told me, we know the forest is devastated. We're tired of hearing them say it. We don't want them to fix anything. We want them to plant seeds of beauty and hope. And I got it immediately. I mean, this was a life-changing reality for me, to hear this wisdom teaching. And at that moment, I actually had just a very small rattle, a little seashell rattle like this. And I took it out of my pocket, and I did something like what I'm about to do. It's the union of these two teachings that I'm going to bring to you, of learning the very nature of seeding, a creative manifestation, just with a simple rattle, but also the nature of holding right and clear intention. And this is part of the nature of healing also. I can clear up all the woundedness and challenges, but there's also a danger of getting fixated on the woundedness. I cannot be wounded and healed at the same time. And at some point, I have to turn from being a victim and being wounded to claim my power and knowing as a whole and healed being. I cannot be both. Either I'm wounded or healed. And so we focus, like these elders in this sacred site taught me, focus on planting the seeds of beauty and hope, beauty and joy, not fixating on the woundedness and the ugliness of the life situation. Many of us could hear this now as a prayer of hope for the world. So I'm going to take this, make just some simple sounds with the rattle. I'm going to begin an invocation of some of my medicine allies, and then I'm just going to begin a simple toning, chanting type of practice. I hope this serves and benefit to our sound community. Every seed, every sound is a seed of creation. What am I planting? What am I holding within myself? In a sacred way, we offer this and hope it benefits many. When we understand that the entire universe is resonance, the entire universe is resonance. Even science tells us this now. The entire universe is resonance. All we have to do is choose what we are attuning to, what state we are resonating in. We can choose that at any time. We can resonate within that state at any time. And we can use that as a fundamental tool of wisdom and understanding to assist others who are seeking their path to unfold, to come into that resonance of pure life, pure wisdom, pure essential states of the nature of self, in right relationship to the greater cosmos. One of the wisdom teachings of the Karo of Central Peru that I did not complete about this time we were in, the time of Taurepe Pacha, the time of meeting ourselves again. What they say within this ancient prophecy is that when enough of us come into right relationship with the living cosmos, that will serve as a catalyst to awaken humanity. So here we are at a time of incredible chaos and polarization. What can we do as practitioners, as spiritual practitioners and spiritual beings? What can we do to enhance the state of being in the world and the outcome of these current events? By entering right relationship with our unique and inherent state in relationship to the greater whole, we serve to awaken all of humanity. And the nature of resonance and entrainment is fundamental mechanics of how that can and shall occur. All life is conscious. This is fundamental to wisdom teachings and indigenous schools. They don't make this stuff up. This is what they are birthed into. They don't have to learn it. They don't have to go out and learn how to speak with the stones and trees. They are our uncles, our sisters and brothers. We honor them, and by coming into resonance with them, we recognize the living cosmos. The more we can do this, we create a state of harmony and balance within ourselves that will serve our own unfolding and that of the planet. So with that, I'm going to leave you, David, to see if you want to ask me more, or if it's a good time to stop. And I would say that I could describe, and not sure that we have any time left, but if we did, I could also offer a very simple practice relating to the free offering I'm doing, or at least an understanding of it, known as the Tree of Life, that arises from indigenous.
I've got some thoughts here.
Yeah, thank you.
See what you think. So, I've been a lot's been happening, and a lot of transformation, and light has just opened up, and it's opening up for a lot of people.
Yes.
And you know, the way I think of this is all about stability, and as you mentioned, coherence.
Yes.
Stable, consistent vibrations and stable flows. So it's a matter of getting your system into that coherence and stability that then synchronizes with the stability or is entrained by the stability and coherent flow of nature and the cosmos, right?
That's absolutely true. And do you know that that's the very core teaching of the Tree of Life practice? That's the very heart.
Cool, cool. So it's interesting. So, sound is all about getting you to that stability with consistent, stable tones or consistent, stable rhythms,
Yes.
right?
Beautiful.
And it's interesting, and same with geometry. You can even use the Sri Yantra, and it's often about stability, which also includes harmony
Yes.
as well. But there's an interesting point, jumping off point, because there's a lot of people, including myself, that can get into a very peaceful state of stillness, and then the light comes in, right?
Yes.
And the light could be archangels, ascended masters, positive aliens, could be just source.
Yes.
It could be the divas of nature, right? And it's interesting because that's where it really gets fun. That's where it really expands into really complete oneness, is when that light comes in. And it's so interesting because that seems to be the key. So I look at, okay, what's the best way, or what are the million ways to, once we get into that state of coherence and stability, which I feel is the key to being able to access it,
Yes.
because now those chaotic vibrations aren't in the way, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what's the key to open up that light? I know some people say, including Doreen Virtue, she says, just ask. They're up there, the angels are just up there, bored to death, waiting for you to ask, right? Just ask, right? It's one way. I mean, you said intention, clarity of intention, right? Yeah, but it's interesting because I'm just at that threshold. I mean, often I'll open up and the whole room will turn into white light,
Mm-hmm.
right? And people entrain to that.
Yes.
But yeah, so what are some of the keys to bringing in the light to the sound?
Well, to me, light is consciousness. And as I entrain to those softer inherent states, that's where the light comes. We actually did that in the practice we began with, where we began with spaciousness in the heart,
Right.
which is a state of coherence and open awareness. And as I said in part of my afterwards about it, when we enter that state of spaciousness, we're literally entraining to the heart of the mother, the great mother, the nature of emptiness or spaciousness as defined by so many cultures, that vast underlying current, the Akash from the Indian schools, the Vedic schools, the Akash, that undulating current that pervades and pervades all life. It's before, during, and after all things, is that undulating state of openness and clarity. When we do that, it often brings us into coherence with the light consciousness. And so in that practice, I brought our attention to that potential of light. I asked us to imagine a light sphere above and slightly above and before us. And that served with this very principle that you're suggesting, that when I come into stillness or stability, that the light is present. So we're fundamentally saying the same thing, possibly in slightly different words. But when we go into that stillness, that spaciousness, silence, those are three key words used in the Tibetan schools, we're entering that state of sentient and conscious stability. And what can happen when we do that, some of the words I used was it's self-liberating, it's self-nourishing, it's self-luminous. So there is that luminosity again. Just by entering spaciousness, stillness, or silence. These are three key states that we use in a lot of our own practices because they can take us into such extraordinary states of wonder. In the wisdom teachings, they are gateways to deeper and deeper states. You can go into either one of these states and just go deeper and deeper, deeper. Fundamental gateways open and open. So there comes the light, And through the light is the brilliance that inspires us, the brilliance that informs us, and the brilliance that guides us. And it's also the brilliance that is our inherent knowing as well. And it's this union of the brilliance of luminosity and that spacious heart that serves to fully awaken and enlighten. This is some of the fundamental practice teachings about it. We open into that spacious wonder. Silence or coherence. There's so many words we can use that we're fundamentally entering the same state in the heart. And then we open to that brilliance of luminosity or consciousness or light, and we merge the two. And that serves to awaken us into an extraordinary state of beauty, of joy. It can be just a very deep, still tranquility. But within it is this key state of clarity and knowing. And in that knowing, we don't have to ask others. We don't have to know what to do. It is there before us and within us. You know, we don't have to have a moral compass because this is that. It's, in some of the schools it's said it's that aspect of consciousness that knows the right thing to do in any given place or time. The aspect of consciousness that knows the right thing to do in any given place or time. So we don't have to think about it beforehand. I don't have to think about what I'm going to do when I come to my partner and try to resolve this difficulty we have in our relationship or in the workplace with my boss. I don't have to think about it. I just have to find this place of stability and stillness within me and open to this light of wisdom, this light of knowing within me, and speak my truth. It's just an authentic speaking of one's own truth. And the more we do it, it's like flexing a muscle. The more we do it, the better we become at it, the more stable we are in it, and we can do it better and better without doubt. And there's that key word, doubt again. It's that knowing without doubt, and it's trusting our own inner wisdom that does arise from that luminous space.
It seems to, what's going on right now, at least in my group of people that I'm around, which is kind of an unusual group, seems like there's so many more people are now going into the light right now. That there's the portal is actually, or the veil is really thin, and a lot of people are lighting up. I know so many people have said, oh my God, you wouldn't believe what just happened, right? And it's really cool. I mean, because, you know, I used to think, okay, as long as I do my practice and get still, the more and more I get still, the more chances that, you know, God will show up, Source will show up. And that's true. But then sometimes people are just in an accident or happen to do the right drugs, right? And God shows up. And so it's interesting, but I do think that the whole thing, when you get down to it, is all peace. It's really peace, and that's stable, consistent vibration, because that's good for you physically, good for you emotionally, good for you mentally, and it's the portal to spiritual
Yes.
as well.
Yes. And there's that stillness again I was just speaking of. You know, I think we're speaking the same language.
It's also interesting, the way some people obtain it as well is sitting with people that are in that light.
Yes.
Because that's just basic entrainment. And all of a sudden it's like, bing!
Absolutely. Absolutely. It opens us very directly to it. Right. So let me just share, and I'll leave you then if you're ready, or talk more if you want. But I find it just extraordinary that this is the way it happened, that we did the spacious practices. It was exactly part of the conversation you're speaking with me, and that I'm offering the Tree of Life practice, which is fundamental to what I'm hearing you say of coming into resonance with all life. And that the elder that gave me this is very funny, because she was with me a number of times and just said, Zacciah, you know, if you put your awareness in your own heart in relationship to the heart of the earth and the heart of the cosmos or the sky or the galaxy, she might use either of those terms, If you just put your awareness in your own heart in relationship to the heart of the earth and the heart of the sky, you would come into resonance with all life, or into harmony with all life. And she just said this like, I don't know, 5 or 10 times over a couple of years. And I was like, oh, yes, grandmother, thank you. That's very beautiful. And I would have said, sure, I got that. But no, I didn't get it. So one night I was actually in Germany teaching, and it was just a very simple preface to a weekend practice. I was just doing like an introductory thing in a bookstore or something before I did a full weekend program. And so there wasn't much to it. And when I do practices, I go inside and check in with my guidance and, just ask what they would like to do with me and so forth. And so there was this agreement. This is what we're going to do. And I go outside, and I think I picked up a drum or something, began to beat it, and began to describe to the people, instruct them what the practice would be. And I was about ready to start toning in the practice, and my guides came in and said, no, we're not doing that now. And this has happened to me several times, but I've learned to trust them a great deal. But I basically, I'm sitting there doing my invocation going, well, no, that's what you're hearing in the audience. And inside I'm going, well, it'd be a really good time to tell me what we're going to do. And they said, well, we're going to do the 3 hearts practice. And I'm like, well, what is that? So they guided me through this practice my elder had been sharing with me of how to come into this resonance in the heart in relationship to the resonance of the earth, and in her wisdom tradition, the resonance of the galaxy, which is the mother of life in this region of the world. Her culture says that the center of the galaxy is the birthplace of souls. It's interesting because scientists call it the birthplace of stars. Very fascinating. And she and other cultures, like the Mayans, say if you go into the heart of the galaxy and go behind the heart, you will enter the doorway to the great circle of life. So there's other cultures, the Hopis speak to it, others speak to this cultural mystery of the heart of the galaxy as the mother of life in this region. And it makes perfect sense. I mean, think about the extraordinary force holding billions of stars in coherent motion and symmetry. It must be an extraordinary force. And I mean, just think of the force of the earth holding coherence here, even if we see a lot of chaos on the surface right now, but the coherence of the earth is an extraordinary principle.
And the body.
So here we come into resonance in our heart, into resonance with the earth and the resonance of the sky, and this will bring you into harmony of all life, is what the teaching says. And if you just think about that, it's like, how could it not be so? We're going into resonance that holds all life on earth, and then all life in the galaxy. That sounds like a pretty good place to be. So that's the practice I'm offering to folks, the Tree of Life, if they would like to partake of it.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Well, thank you so much. This was really precious.
It's a joy to share with you, and it's a joy to have time again. It's been a while, and I appreciate your efforts to bring me there, and I look forward to another time together. Many thanks and many blessings to you.
Oh, thank you. Take care.
Thanks to all those who have been listening too. I hope it is beneficial for you.